After discussing myths versus reality in Part 1, exploitative management practices in Part 2, scapegoating in Part 3, and counter-arguments in Part 4, we've come to the conclusion that if your business model can boost margins by hiring people who are easier to underpay, easier to intimidate, and harder to protect, then the system will keep searching for groups of vulnerable people as cheap labor. It will keep generating resentment among everyone else. This is a management design issue because exploitation does not care which group it targets. Vulnerability is what it is searching for. So, this leads us to the final question. How do we address exploitation as a business model directly? Greetings, this is Paul from Management as a Liberal Art, where we reclaim management to serve people and society. Today's topic is the social enterprise. How to make exploitation stop paying. This is part 5 of our series, Immigrants Aren't the Problem, Employers Are. Now let's conclude this series with our grand finale, A Path Forward. Peter Drucker offers a crucial standard that immediately exposes organizational flaws. He states, results exist only on the outside. Drucker explains that the result of a business is a satisfied customer. For example, the result of a hospital is a healed patient. Conversely, inside an enterprise, there are only costs. This distinction is vital because it reveals the danger of executives primarily measuring success with internal metrics like reduced labor costs, lower headcounts, increased payroll flexibility, or higher profit margins. While the internal spreadsheet may look excellent, the outside results can be deteriorating, manifesting as unemployment, low standards of living, low trust, community instability, and rising hostility among workers. Therefore, Drucker's standard is essentially a measure of our impact. If results are external, then the outside world functions as the scoreboard. An organization's purpose becomes its contribution, how it helps others and supports the functioning of society. Drucker emphasizes that the profit motive and the maximization of profits are not only irrelevant, but actively harm the understanding of true business. Drucker states that the profit motive and the maximization of profits are not only irrelevant, but actively harmful to the understanding of the true purpose of business. Why? As previously noted, the organization's purpose is external to the firm. Its function is to provide results for society, because business enterprise is an organ of society. It exists for the sake of society, and no organ can exist outside of the body. Just as organs serve the body, organizations serve society. An organ that does not serve the body is a dysfunctional organ. It is a drain on the body's resources at best and actively does harm at worst. Do you know the other name researchers give dysfunctional organs? Cancer. Cancer cells are defined by their self-serving focus, consuming resources without regard for the body's overall health. Similarly, an organization focused on profit maximization mistakes its own survival for its purpose. Its objective becomes resource extraction from society. This flawed focus leads to the deterioration of society, much like cancer ravaging the body. So what exactly is a social enterprise? How is it defined and recognized? Here is the cleanest definition that I could come up with. A social enterprise is a performance institution that produces results outside of the organization itself without degrading the human and social conditions it depends on. So the social enterprise treats not knowingly do harm as a management discipline, not a PR tactic. Profits are not the objective, but they are a necessity for the survival of the organization, just as organs require nutrients and resources to function and continue serving the body. A social enterprise is not a charity, and it is not an attempt at utopia. It is a business that understands 1. Its purpose is external, the results for customers and society. 2. Its people are central to performance. And 3. Its legitimacy is the value it offers to society itself. But Paul, this sounds like a nonprofit. How is it any different? Oh, that is a great question. Drucker recognized the similarities as well. The main difference is that while many nonprofits do exist to contribute directly to society, almost all are reliant on contributions and donations for survival, meaning most nonprofits are not self-sustaining. Their resources and capabilities fluctuate with the trends, the economic conditions, and the generosity of their donors. This does not provide a solid foundation for lasting societal contribution. So the social enterprise is different from a traditional nonprofit in 2 key ways. 1. It must remain economically disciplined and sustainable. It has to create a customer and remain viable. Otherwise, it can't sustain any contribution at all. 2. It cannot outsource the human costs of its competitiveness. It doesn't solve society directly, but it does solve its role in society by refusing exploitative business models and refusing to focus on profit maximization. Now, tying this back to our main theme, for an example, the social enterprise doesn't fix immigration. It removes the employer-side incentives to exploit immigrants and migrant workers as a competitive advantage. It understands that when profits aren't the goal, exploiting labor laws and chasing cheap labor becomes essentially pointless. So how do we go about putting the social enterprise into practice? The best method would be to create a new business as a social enterprise from the get-go. However, given the number of existing competing businesses, this would represent a very slow and gradual change towards realizing a functioning society. So an alternative consideration is to realign existing business values to those of the social enterprise. Now, regardless of either approach, here are the core principles of a social enterprise. Number 1, people. People, especially knowledge workers, are not costs to be minimalized, but assets to be developed. Work should provide contribution, responsibility, and dignity. Success for the person is measured by the person's contribution to meaningful performance. 2, organization. An organization exists to produce results outside of itself by serving society. Profit is necessary for survival, but it is not the purpose. Success for an organization is measured by the value the institution creates for its customers and its role in society. Number 3, society. Society is a man-made social ecology or ecosystem. It is a network of institutions whose relationships create or destroy function. Success for a society is measured not by wealth, but whether people have status, function, opportunity, and human dignity. Implementing these 3 pillars, focusing on the individual, the institution, and society, is not just an ideal, but a necessity for achieving a truly functioning society. When people are treated as assets, when organizations serve a purpose beyond profit, and when society's success is measured by the dignity and opportunity of its members, a powerful self-reinforcing social ecology is created. This integrated approach ensures that every layer of the social structure contributes to value creation, stability, and human well-being, making the conversion to a social enterprise model the most robust path towards a prosperous and equitable future. So in conclusion, society is a man-made ecosystem, and like any ecosystem, its health is fundamental to the survival of its components. For example, a fishing industry cannot survive in a dying ocean. A lumber business cannot thrive in a dead forest. By the same logic, business itself cannot flourish in a society where its people are struggling to survive. When people experience insecurity, status loss, and a perceived lack of structure and credible rules governing their lives, the result is rising tension and anxiety. Resentment builds into a search for targets to blame. Immigrants frequently become a convenient target, serving as a social scapegoat even though they were not responsible for designing the systemic failures that produced these results. So in a nutshell, immigrants and migrant labor are not the root cause of a collapsing social ecosystem. Rather, their presence acts as a stress test on the existing system. When institutions are legitimate and performance is authentic, immigrants can integrate into the labor market without becoming a permanent underclass citizen. In this healthy environment, native workers do not feel they are compelled into a race to the bottom, and the public conflict does not need a scapegoat to maintain social coherence. However, when institutions fail, the system deteriorates. Vulnerability becomes a necessary labor strategy for corporations. Resentment solidifies into dangerous social strategies for communities. And demagogic narratives replace genuine management or effective governance. As Peter Drucker described, his lifelong theme centered on the freedom, dignity, and status of the individual, viewing organizations as an instrument of human achievement and fulfillment. He directly connected the free market to a functioning civil society, stating that without this foundation, the market is impotent. Therefore, any labor model or business practice that inherently produces social instability, scapegoating, and civil fracture does not support a free market nor capitalism. Instead, it is actively consuming the very social foundations upon our collective future. So if you only take one message away from this entire series, take this. The immigration conflict is not a people problem. It is a sign that there is something wrong with our institutions. From the Drucker perspective, your job as a future leader in any sector is to ensure the performance and the integrity of your institutions. Your task is to manage the tension inherent in human affairs, not with the consuming of our social foundations. You must insist on legitimacy, competence, and function in your own organization, because the ecosystem you and your business depends on is entirely within our own control. We must never forget that the results are always measured outside of the organization. The stability of our future is an outcome of the operational excellence you instill today. Thank you for joining me in this series. It was a long journey, and I hope it provided you with some food for thought. My goal here was not to convince you of the best and the only way forward, but rather present an alternative for you to consider. An alternative that is drastically different from most other discussions on this sensitive topic. So what do you think? Do you agree with the concepts presented in this series? I would love to hear from you in the comments below. It always generates a good discussion. Now, if you found this useful, please like and subscribe and share it with somebody who might be interested. As always, thank you so much for your time and attention. I'll see you again soon.